It's 11:47 p.m. Mountain Time, October 23rd, 2025. I've been broadcasting from this booth for 32 years, and I've never had to tell you what I'm about to tell you tonight. 3 hours and 13 minutes ago at 8:34 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we lost the moon. Let me be clear about what happened, because the reports coming in are, well, they're unprecedented. At exactly 8:34 p.m. EST, NASA's Deep Space Surveillance Network detected what they're calling a massive kinetic impact event on the lunar surface. The object, and we now know it was an asteroid roughly 12 kilometers in diameter, struck the moon at approximately 47 kilometers per second. Now I know what you're thinking. The moon gets hit by asteroids all the time. We see the craters. But this wasn't just any asteroid. This was what astronomers call a planet killer, the same class of object that ended the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. Except this time, it didn't hit Earth. It hit our moon. The impact released energy equivalent to roughly 10 billion atomic bombs. 10 billion. The entire visible face of the moon, it just cracked, like an egg hitting concrete. I'm looking at the latest images from the Hubble Space Telescope here, and what I'm seeing doesn't look like the moon anymore. It looks like a shattered marble, held together by gravity alone. The larger fragments, some as big as Rhode Island, are already beginning to drift apart. Dr. Sarah Chen from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory held a press conference an hour ago. She confirmed what we're all afraid to acknowledge. The moon, as we've known it for 4.5 billion years, is gone. What remains is an expanding debris field of rock and dust that will, over the next several months, either fall to Earth or scatter into space. But let me tell you about the immediate effects. The first thing people noticed was the darkness. I'm here in Denver, and I can tell you that even with the city lights, the night sky looks wrong, hollow. The moon was providing about 0.25 lux of illumination. That's fully equivalent to a candle at 10 feet. It doesn't sound like much, but when it's gone, you notice. The stars are brighter now, yes, but the familiar silver glow that has guided human civilization for millennia is simply absent. Emergency services across the globe are reporting a surge in accidents. Traffic collisions have increased by 40% in areas without adequate street lighting. The human eye, adapted over millions of years to navigate by moonlight, is struggling with the new reality of true darkness. But the darkness is the least of our concerns. At 10:15 p.m., exactly 1 hour and 41 minutes after impact, the first tsunami struck the eastern seaboard. The moon's gravitational pull creates our tides, something we learned in elementary school. What we didn't fully comprehend was how suddenly removing that pull would affect our oceans. When the moon was destroyed, the tidal bulge of water that was being pulled toward it, roughly 500 trillion gallons of seawater, suddenly had nowhere to go. This water, now free from the moon's gravitational influence, is redistributing itself around the globe based purely on Earth's rotation and gravitational field. The National Weather Service is calling it a gravitational tsunami. The first wave hit Hampton Roads, Virginia at 10:15 p.m. with a surge height of 43 feet. Similar waves struck the Bay of Fundy at 10:23 p.m. and the Thames Estuary at 3:47 a.m. London time. We're getting reports of catastrophic flooding in low-lying coastal areas worldwide. But here's what's truly frightening. This isn't a single event. Without the moon's gravity to regulate them, our oceans are now completely unpredictable. The twice-daily tidal cycle that has governed marine ecosystems for billions of years has simply stopped. I'm receiving updates from marine biologists along the Pacific coast. The intertidal zones, those areas between high and low tide that support some of our most diverse ecosystems, are in chaos. Countless species of mollusks, barnacles, and seaweed that depend on the predictable rhythm of tides are facing extinction. We're talking about the collapse of entire food webs within days. And it's not just marine life. The Pacific Northwestern salmon runs, which navigate using tidal cues, are completely disoriented. In Alaska, brown bears that depend on salmon for their pre-hibernation feeding are gathering at empty streams, confused and increasingly desperate. I just received word from the National Hurricane Center. Without the moon's gravitational influence, our weather patterns are already shifting. The moon's pull doesn't just affect our oceans, it influences our atmosphere. The jet stream, that river of air that controls weather across North America, is beginning to wobble erratically. Dr. Michael Torres from NOAA's Climate Prediction Center issued a statement 20 minutes ago. He's predicting that within 72 hours, we'll see unprecedented weather phenomena. The loss of lunar gravitational influence on our atmosphere could trigger what he's calling atmospheric chaos events. We're talking about massive storm systems with no predictable patterns, temperature swings of 40 degrees within hours, and wind patterns unlike anything in recorded history. But perhaps most concerning is what's happening to Earth's rotation. The moon has been gradually slowing Earth's rotation for billions of years through tidal friction. Without that influence, our planet is experiencing what geophysicists are calling rotational instability. Professor James Whitmore from MIT's Department of Earth Sciences held an emergency briefing 40 minutes ago. He explained that Earth's rotational axis, which gives us our seasons and determines our climate zones, is no longer stable. The 23.5-degree tilt that creates our seasons is beginning to wobble. Think about what this means. The Arctic ice caps, which have remained frozen due to their position relative to the sun, could find themselves in direct sunlight for months at a time. Conversely, currently temperate regions could be plunged into darkness and freezing temperatures. We're already seeing the beginning of this effect. Temperature readings from Barrow, Alaska show an increase of 7 degrees in the past 3 hours. Meanwhile, Miami is reporting the coldest October night in recorded history. I need to share something personal with you listeners. I've been doing this job for 3 decades. I've reported on hurricanes, earthquakes, terrorist attacks, pandemics. But I've never had to tell people that the fundamental nature of their world has changed overnight. My daughter called me an hour ago from Phoenix. She's a geology professor at Arizona State University. She was crying, not from fear, but from a kind of scientific grief. She told me that everything she's taught about Earth systems, everything we thought we understood about our planet's stability, has become obsolete in the span of 3 hours. The geological implications are staggering. The moon's gravitational pull affects not just our oceans and atmosphere, but our planet's crust itself. What we call earth tides, the subtle flexing of solid rock due to lunar gravity, have been a constant force for billions of years. Without this influence, the stress patterns in Earth's crust are changing. The San Andreas Fault, the Ring of Fire, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, all of these geological features have existed in delicate equilibrium with lunar tidal forces. That equilibrium is gone. The United States Geological Survey issued a statement 30 minutes ago, upgrading earthquake probabilities for every major fault system on Earth. They're not predicting specific events. They can't. What they're saying is that the absence of lunar tidal stress could trigger seismic activity in ways we've never experienced. I'm looking at data from seismographs around the world, and there's a pattern emerging. Small earthquakes, magnitude 3 to 4, are occurring at 3 times the normal rate. It's as if the Earth itself is settling, like a house adjusting to new foundations. But let's talk about what this means for human civilization. For 50,000 years, humans have navigated by the moon. Every ancient culture built calendars around lunar cycles. The very word month comes from moon. Agricultural societies have planted and harvested by lunar phases for millennia. Tonight, in rural areas across the globe, farmers are standing in their fields, looking up at a dark sky, and realizing that 10,000 years of accumulated wisdom about when to plant, when to harvest, when to breed livestock, all of it is now useless. The psychological impact is already evident. Emergency rooms across the country are treating patients for anxiety attacks, panic disorders, and what psychologists are calling cosmic grief syndrome. Dr. Rebecca Morrison from the National Institute of Mental Health held a press conference an hour ago. She explained that the moon has been humanity's most constant companion. Unlike the sun, which disappears every night, the moon has been a reliable presence in our night sky. Its absence is triggering a form of collective trauma unlike anything in human experience. Children are particularly affected. Pediatric hospitals are reporting that children are refusing to sleep, unable to cope with the wrongness of the night sky. Some are asking their parents if the sun will disappear next. And they're not wrong to be afraid, because what I haven't told you yet is what's coming. Those lunar fragments I mentioned earlier, some as large as mountains, they're not just drifting apart. Some of them are falling toward Earth. NASA's tracking systems have identified at least 47 fragments large enough to survive atmospheric entry. The largest is estimated to be 3 kilometers across. The first impacts are predicted to begin in 18 hours. NASA is calling it the lunar meteor shower, but that's a sanitized term for what could be the most destructive bombardment in human history. Most of these fragments will burn up in our atmosphere or land in the ocean. But even one major impact on a populated area could kill millions of people, and we have no way to stop them. Our entire planetary defense system was designed to intercept objects coming from deep space, not debris from our own moon. I'm getting word from the International Space Station. Commander Sarah Walsh reports that the debris field is unlike anything we've ever seen. Chunks of lunar rock, ranging from pebbles to city-sized masses, are spreading throughout Earth's orbital space. Some are being captured by Earth's gravity and will eventually fall as meteors. Others are achieving escape velocity and will become wandering asteroids in the solar system. But here's something that gives me chills. Some of the lunar fragments are large enough to have their own gravitational fields. These mini-moons, as astronomers are calling them, could eventually settle into unstable orbits around Earth. Imagine looking up and seeing not one moon, but dozens of small, irregular shapes moving unpredictably across the night sky. The economic implications are staggering. The London Stock Exchange, which opened 3 hours after the impact, immediately suspended trading as global markets went into free fall. The agricultural commodities market has essentially collapsed as traders realize that crop cycles worldwide are now unpredictable. Insurance companies are facing what actuaries are calling an impossible event, a disaster that literally cannot be calculated because it falls outside all existing risk models. How do you insure against the loss of the moon? The space industry, ironically, is both devastated and seeing unprecedented demand. Every space agency on Earth is now tasked with tracking thousands of lunar fragments, while simultaneously trying to understand how the loss of the moon will affect existing satellites and space missions. The Artemis program, which was planning to return humans to the moon by 2026, has obviously been canceled. But more immediately, the dozens of active lunar missions, orbiters, landers, and rovers have all been lost. Humanity's presence on the moon, built up over decades of exploration, has been wiped out in an instant. I want to share something that happened an hour ago. My oldest son, David, is a commercial fisherman out of Gloucester, Massachusetts. He called me from his boat, and he was crying. Not from fear, but from a kind of professional despair. He told me that in the 3 hours since the moon disappeared, everything he knows about fishing has become useless. Fish behavior, feeding patterns, spawning cycles, they're all tied to tidal rhythms. Without tides, the fish are acting like they're drugged. Schools that should be moving towards shore are swimming in circles. Species that normally migrate are staying in place. And that's what we're all going to have to accept, listeners. As of 8:34 p.m. Eastern Time today, Earth became a different planet, a planet without a moon. The full implications will take months or years to understand. But what we know right now is that every natural cycle we've depended on, tides, weather patterns, seasonal stability, even the length of our days, all of it is now uncertain. We're living through what scientists are calling a planetary transition event. Earth is evolving from a two-body system, Earth and Moon, into something we've never seen before. A lone planet trying to find its new equilibrium without its ancient companion. I'll be back in 1 hour with more updates as they develop. This is William Ravies, CareX Radio Denver. Stay with your families tonight, hold them close, and remember that humans have survived ice ages, volcanic winters, and mass extinctions. We'll survive this too. But we'll be doing it under an empty sky. This is William Ravies. It's 6:23 a.m. Mountain Time, October 24th, 2025. The sun is rising on the first day of Earth without a moon. I've been in this booth all night, coordinating with emergency services, speaking with scientists, and trying to make sense of reports coming in from around the globe. What I'm about to tell you will sound like science fiction, but I assure you, every word is verified through multiple sources. In the 14 hours since the moon's destruction, our world has fundamentally changed. Let me start with what happened overnight while most of you were trying to sleep. At 3:17 a.m. Eastern Time, the first major lunar fragment entered Earth's atmosphere over the North Atlantic. The chunk of lunar rock, estimated at roughly 400 meters across, broke apart at an altitude of 60 kilometers, creating what witnesses described as a second sunrise in the middle of the night. The debris field from this fragment scattered across an area from Newfoundland to Ireland. While most pieces burned up completely, at least 37 meteorites have been recovered, ranging in size from golf balls to refrigerators. These aren't ordinary meteorites. They're pieces of our moon returning home. But that was just the beginning. Between 3:17 and 6 a.m. this morning, 17 more fragments entered our atmosphere. Most burned up harmlessly, but 3 struck land masses. The largest impact occurred at 4:43 a.m. local time in the Sahara Desert, creating a crater approximately 200 meters wide. Seismographs in Cairo registered the impact as a magnitude 4.2 earthquake. NASA's tracking systems are now following 238 fragments large enough to pose potential threats to populated areas. The good news is that most will burn up in our atmosphere. The concerning news is that we have no historical precedent for predicting exactly how lunar rock behaves during atmospheric entry. Dr. Maria Santos from the European Space Agency held a briefing 2 hours ago. She explained that lunar rock has a different composition than typical asteroids. It's been protected from solar radiation and cosmic weathering for billions of years. When it hits our atmosphere, it behaves differently, sometimes breaking apart higher than expected, sometimes surviving longer than predicted. But the falling debris is actually our smallest concern right now. The real crisis is what's happening to our oceans. Without the moon's gravitational pull, our tides have not just stopped, they've become chaotic. The Pacific Ocean, which contains half of all Earth's seawater, is experiencing what oceanographers are calling gravitational sloshing. Imagine water in a bathtub when you suddenly stop moving it back and forth. The water doesn't just stop, it continues to move unpredictably until it finds its new equilibrium. That's what's happening to our oceans, but on a planetary scale. At 2:45 a.m., A massive wave struck the coast of Japan with no warning. Traditional tsunami detection systems were useless because this wasn't caused by an earthquake or landslide. It was caused by the Pacific Ocean trying to redistribute itself without lunar influence. The wave reached heights of 60 feet in some areas, causing catastrophic flooding in coastal cities that had no time to evacuate. Similar events struck Australia at 4:12 a.m. local time and the western coast of South America at various times throughout the night. These aren't traditional tsunamis with predictable patterns. They're what Dr. Helena Rodriguez from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration describes as gravitational waves, massive movements of water as Earth's oceans search for their new equilibrium. The Port of Los Angeles suspended all operations at midnight after harbor pilots reported that the water level was fluctuating by 15 feet every 30 to 40 minutes with no predictable pattern. Similar reports are coming from major ports worldwide. But let me tell you about something even more disturbing. At 4:30 a.m., marine biologists at the Scripps Institution of Oceanography in San Diego reported what they're calling a biological silence in the Pacific. Their underwater monitoring stations, which normally record the sounds of whale songs, dolphin clicks, and countless other marine life, are picking up almost nothing. It's as if the ocean has gone quiet. Dr. Robert Kim, a marine biologist who's been studying whale behavior for 30 years, called me personally at 5:15 a.m. He was shaken. He told me that in the past 8 hours, whales along the California coast have completely stopped their normal vocalizations. These are animals that navigate and communicate across thousands of miles using sound. Something has disrupted their ability to process their acoustic environment. He believes that the sudden change in water pressure and density caused by the chaotic redistribution of oceanic water masses has damaged their ability to echolocate. Imagine if you woke up one morning and your sense of hearing was completely scrambled. That's what every whale, dolphin, and echolocating marine animal on Earth is experiencing right now. The fishing industry is in complete collapse. Commercial fishermen from Alaska to Chile are reporting that fish are behaving in ways they've never seen. Schools that should be feeding are remaining motionless near the surface. Deep-sea species are being found in shallow water. Entire populations seem to be in a state of biological shock, but the crisis extends far beyond our oceans. The atmospheric effects I warned about last night are accelerating faster than even the most pessimistic predictions. The jet stream, that river of high-altitude air that controls weather patterns across North America, has become completely unstable. What normally appears as smooth, predictable waves on weather maps now looks like a child's scribbling. Meteorologists have essentially given up trying to provide weather forecasts beyond 12 hours because the atmospheric patterns are changing too rapidly to track. Chicago woke up to 80-degree temperatures this morning in late October. Meanwhile, Phoenix recorded its first freeze in recorded history. These aren't gradual climate changes unfolding over decades. These are chaotic weather events happening in real time as Earth's atmosphere adjusts to the absence of lunar gravitational influence. The agricultural implications are staggering. Dr. Patricia Huang from the USDA called me at 5:45 a.m. with an update that should concern everyone. She explained that plant biology is far more connected to lunar cycles than most people realize. Farmers across the Midwest are reporting that their late-season crops, corn and soybeans that should be ready for harvest, are showing signs of severe stress. The plants aren't dying, but they're not behaving normally. It's as if their internal biological clocks have been scrambled. More concerning is what's happening to livestock. Dairy farmers in Wisconsin are reporting that milk production has dropped by 40% overnight. Chickens have stopped laying eggs in normal patterns. Beef cattle are displaying what veterinarians describe as severe anxiety behaviors: constant pacing, vocalization, and refusal to graze normally. These animals evolved over millions of years with lunar cycles governing their biological rhythms. The sudden absence of those cycles is causing what can only be described as species-wide confusion. But perhaps the most unsettling development is what's happening to human sleep patterns. Sleep disorder clinics across the country are reporting that people simply cannot achieve normal sleep cycles. The absence of moonlight has disrupted circadian rhythms in ways that go beyond just the visual cues. Human sleep patterns aren't just influenced by light and darkness. They're subtly affected by gravitational fluctuations caused by the moon. Our bodies, which are roughly 60% water, experience tiny tidal effects that help regulate our internal clocks. Without the moon, people are experiencing what she calls gravitational insomnia. They're falling asleep at random times, waking up disoriented, and reporting dreams that are unusually vivid and disturbing. Emergency rooms are treating record numbers of people for exhaustion and sleep deprivation-related accidents. Children are particularly affected. Pediatric hospitals are reporting that infants are crying for longer periods and sleeping for shorter durations. Some child psychologists believe that humans may have an instinctual awareness of the moon's presence that we've never fully understood. The technological implications are also becoming clear. GPS satellites, which rely on precise atomic clocks, are beginning to show subtle timing errors. These errors are small, measured in nanoseconds, but they're accumulating. If the trend continues, GPS accuracy could degrade significantly within weeks. The issue is that atomic clocks, despite their precision, were calibrated in a world with a moon. The tiny gravitational fluctuations caused by lunar tides affected these clocks in ways so small that we never noticed. Now that those fluctuations are gone, the clocks are running slightly differently. The implications for everything from air traffic control to financial trading systems could be enormous. I want to share something that happened to me personally around 4 a.m. I was reviewing data from seismographs around the world when I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The background seismic activity, the constant tiny vibrations that Earth experiences even during quiet periods, has changed. These vibrations, caused by ocean waves, wind, and other natural phenomena, create what geologists call Earth's hum. It's a constant, low-frequency sound that our planet has been making for billions of years. Seismologists use it as a baseline to detect earthquakes and other events. That hum has changed. It's subtle. You need sensitive instruments to detect it. But Earth literally sounds different now. We've removed a fundamental component of our planet's physical system, and Earth itself is responding. The psychological effects are intensifying. Religious leaders worldwide are struggling to provide comfort to congregations facing questions that no human has ever had to ask. What does it mean that God, or the universe, or whatever force governs reality, allowed such a thing to happen? Emergency services are reporting unprecedented levels of volunteer participation. People are setting up shelters for those displaced by the chaotic tides. Neighbors are checking on each other, sharing resources, and creating informal support networks. Dr. Emma Rodriguez, a sociologist at UC Berkeley, called me at dawn with an observation that gives me hope. She's been monitoring social media and news reports, and she's seeing what she calls catastrophic cooperation, the tendency for humans to come together and help each other during existential crises. Despite the chaos, despite the fear, despite the complete disruption of normal life, people are taking care of each other. Food banks are receiving massive donations. Hospitals are being staffed by volunteers. Teachers are creating informal schools in community centers for children whose regular schools are closed. It's as if humanity recognizes instinctively that we're all facing this together. The scientific community is mobilizing in ways I've never seen. Researchers who normally compete for funding and recognition are sharing data freely. International cooperation on studying the crisis is happening at a speed that would normally take years of diplomatic negotiation. NASA has announced that every spacefaring nation is contributing resources to track lunar debris and study the long-term effects on Earth systems. The European Space Agency, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, the Indian Space Research Organization, and even traditionally secretive programs are working together. We're seeing the best of human nature emerging in response to the worst disaster in our species' history. As the sun rises on this first day without the moon, I'm looking at preliminary models from climatologists attempting to predict our planet's new equilibrium. The models are highly uncertain, we're in uncharted territory, but there are some consistent predictions. Earth's climate will become more chaotic and unpredictable. Without the stabilizing influence of the moon, we can expect more extreme weather, more rapid temperature fluctuations, and the breakdown of traditional seasonal patterns. The length of our days will gradually increase. Over centuries and millennia, without the moon's gravitational braking effect, Earth's rotation will slow more dramatically than it has in the past. Our planet's axial tilt, which gives us our seasons, will become unstable. This could eventually lead to ice ages, or conversely, the melting of polar ice caps, depending on how the axis wobbles. But here's what gives me hope. Humans are incredibly adaptable. We've survived ice ages, volcanic winters, pandemics, and wars. We've always found ways to adjust to changing circumstances. We'll learn to live without tides. We'll develop new agricultural techniques that don't depend on lunar cycles. We'll create new navigation systems that don't rely on the moon. We'll adapt our sleep patterns and biological rhythms to Earth's new reality. It won't be easy. The transition will take generations, but we'll do it because that's what humans do. We adapt, we innovate, and we survive. I'll be back in 1 hour with updates on the lunar debris field and the latest reports from emergency services worldwide. This is William Ravies, reminding you that even under an empty sky, we're not alone. We have each other. Good evening, listeners. This is William Ravies. It's 8:34 p.m. Mountain Time, October 24th, 2025. Exactly 24 hours ago, at this precise moment, our moon was destroyed. The world you woke up to this morning no longer exists. The world you'll wake up to tomorrow will be different still. We are living through the most rapid environmental transformation in human history, and I'm here to help you understand what we're facing. In the past 24 hours, I've spoken with scientists, emergency responders, and ordinary people from around the globe. What I've learned will reshape how we think about our planet, our civilization, and our future. Let me start with the most immediate crisis, the lunar debris storm. 43 minutes ago, at 7:51 p.m. Mountain Time, the largest piece of lunar debris to survive atmospheric entry struck the Earth. The fragment, estimated at 2 kilometers in diameter, impacted in the remote regions of Kazakhstan, approximately 400 kilometers southeast of Almaty. The impact created a crater nearly 10 kilometers wide and released energy equivalent to a large hydrogen bomb. The seismic shock was felt across Central Asia, registering as a magnitude 6.8 earthquake in populated areas hundreds of kilometers away. While the remote location prevented immediate casualties, the atmospheric effects are global. The impact threw millions of tons of dust and debris into the upper atmosphere, creating what atmospheric scientists are calling an impact winter event. Satellite imagery shows a dust cloud spreading across the entire northern hemisphere. Dr. Jennifer Walsh from the National Center for Atmospheric Research contacted me an hour ago with a sobering assessment. She estimates that global temperatures will drop by 2 to 3 degrees Celsius over the next 6 months due to this single impact. Combined with the chaotic weather patterns caused by the moon's absence, We're facing climate conditions unlike anything in recorded history. But this is just one impact. NASA's updated tracking shows that 41 more fragments large enough to cause significant damage are still on collision courses with Earth. The largest of these is estimated at 5 kilometers across, large enough to trigger a mass extinction event if it strikes a populated area. The next major impact is predicted for 3:17 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow morning, with the target zone somewhere in the central Pacific Ocean. While this will avoid immediate human casualties, the oceanic impact could generate massive tsunamis affecting coastlines throughout the Pacific Rim. Evacuation orders have been issued for coastal areas from California to Japan. We're talking about the largest mass evacuation in human history. Over 200 million people being moved inland in less than 18 hours. The scale of human displacement is staggering. Emergency shelters designed for hurricanes and earthquakes are completely inadequate for this crisis. Entire cities along the Pacific coast are essentially emptying as people flee to higher ground. I spoke with Maria Santos, Director of Emergency Services for Los Angeles County, 30 minutes ago. She told me that the city's evacuation is proceeding, but it's chaotic. The freeway systems simply weren't designed to handle the simultaneous exodus of millions of people. She described scenes that sound like something from an apocalyptic movie. Mile-long traffic jams stretching inland, people abandoning cars to walk, families carrying everything they own in backpacks. But she also described incredible acts of human kindness. Strangers sharing fuel, food, and shelter with evacuees they'd never met. The economic implications are beyond calculation. The New York Stock Exchange suspended trading indefinitely after futures markets collapsed across all sectors. Insurance companies are declaring bankruptcy rather than face claims they cannot possibly honor. The global shipping industry has essentially ceased operations as no port can guarantee safe harbor. But let me tell you about something that's happening that the media isn't covering. The biological crisis. Dr. Rachel Torres from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution has been monitoring marine ecosystems since the impact. What she's finding represents the fastest large-scale extinction event in Earth's history. The chaotic ocean conditions have disrupted the base of the marine food web. Phytoplankton, the microscopic organisms that produce most of Earth's oxygen and form the foundation of all ocean life, are dying in unprecedented numbers. Without predictable tidal mixing to bring nutrients to the surface, these organisms cannot photosynthesize effectively. Torres estimates that we've lost approximately 20% of global phytoplankton populations in just 24 hours. If this continues, we're looking at a collapse of ocean ecosystems within weeks, not years. The atmospheric oxygen implications are terrifying. Ocean phytoplankton produce roughly 70% of the oxygen we breathe. While the immediate effect on breathable air will take time to manifest, the long-term consequences could threaten all terrestrial life. But the crisis extends beyond the oceans. Terrestrial ecosystems are experiencing what biologists are calling circadian collapse. The sudden absence of these cycles is causing widespread behavioral and physiological disruption. Dr. Amanda Chen from the National Park Service called me this morning with reports from Yellowstone that sound surreal. Grizzly bears, which should be in their final feeding phase before hibernation, are wandering aimlessly, unable to follow their instinctual patterns. Some are attempting to hibernate weeks early, while others are remaining active when they should be preparing for winter sleep. Elk herds are displaying mass confusion. These animals navigate using magnetic fields, star positions, and subtle environmental cues that include lunar influence. Without the moon, they're essentially lost. Rangers are finding entire herds walking in circles, unable to follow their migration routes. The situation with migratory birds is even more dramatic. Species that should be flying thousands of miles to winter habitats are instead gathering in massive, confused flocks. Agricultural systems worldwide are in crisis. The immediate problem isn't crop failure. Most plants can survive the short term without lunar cycles. The problem is that farmers have no framework for managing agriculture without the natural rhythms they've depended on for thousands of years. I spoke with Tom Rodriguez, a third-generation farmer from Iowa, this afternoon. He explained that everything from planting schedules to livestock breeding has been based on lunar cycles. His family has kept planting almanacs going back to his great-grandfather, all coordinated with moon phases. Now none of that knowledge applies. Tom told me that farmers across the Midwest are essentially paralyzed, unsure when to harvest remaining crops, when to plant winter cover crops, or how to manage their animals' breeding cycles. The disruption to food production comes at the worst possible time. With global transportation systems in chaos and coastal populations displaced, we're facing potential food shortages even if agricultural production were normal. But I want to talk about something else, something that gives me hope in the midst of this catastrophe. Human innovation is accelerating at an unprecedented pace. The complete disruption of normal systems is forcing rapid adaptation and creativity that might have taken decades under normal circumstances. MIT's Emergency Research Consortium has developed preliminary models for post-lunar agriculture, farming techniques that don't rely on traditional lunar cycle-based practices. Teams of agricultural scientists are working around the clock to create new planting and harvesting schedules based on purely terrestrial environmental cues. Similarly, marine biologists are developing plans for artificial tide systems, using mechanical pumps and barriers to recreate tidal effects in critical coastal ecosystems. While these systems can't replace the moon's influence globally, they might preserve some crucial habitats during the transition period. The international cooperation is remarkable. Information sharing between nations that were geopolitical rivals just days ago is happening in real time. Russian oceanographers are sharing data with American climate scientists. Chinese agricultural researchers are collaborating with European biologists. The shared crisis has created an unprecedented level of global scientific cooperation. Dr. Yuki Tanaka from the Japan Meteorological Agency called me 2 hours ago with a development that illustrates this new spirit of cooperation. Japanese researchers have developed a computer model that can predict short-term weather patterns in the absence of lunar influence. Instead of keeping this breakthrough classified, they've shared it freely with meteorological services worldwide. The technology sector is responding with equal innovation. Software engineers are working to develop new GPS algorithms that don't rely on the subtle timing effects that lunar gravity provided. Navigation apps are being completely rewritten to function in a world where traditional celestial navigation has been disrupted. This is William Ravies, CareX Radio, Denver. It's 11:47 p.m. Mountain Time, October 25th, 2025. 48 hours ago, at this exact moment, our moon still hung in the sky, as it had for billions of years. Tonight, I'm looking through my studio window at a star-filled darkness that our ancestors never saw. In 2 days, we've witnessed the end of one world and the birth of another. The Pacific tsunami struck the coastlines at 6:23 a.m. this morning. The waves reached heights of 85 feet in some areas, but the massive evacuation effort saved millions of lives. The largest humanitarian migration in human history was completed with a death toll in the hundreds rather than the millions we feared. That success tells you everything you need to know about human resilience and cooperation under impossible circumstances. But let me tell you about what we've learned in the past 24 hours that will reshape our understanding of what Earth can become. The lunar debris bombardment is nearing its end. 17 more fragments struck Earth today, but our tracking and prediction systems have improved dramatically. The largest impact occurred at 2:15 p.m. in the Greenland ice sheet, creating a crater 4 kilometers wide, but avoiding populated areas. More importantly, we've discovered something unexpected about these impacts. The lunar material contains isotopes and mineral compositions that don't exist naturally on Earth. These materials, when they hit our planet, are creating new geological formations and potentially valuable resources. Dr. Amanda Rodriguez from the Colorado School of Mines contacted me this afternoon with analysis from the Kazakhstan impact site. The lunar material contains rare earth elements in concentrations far higher than any terrestrial deposits. Ironically, the destruction of the moon may have delivered resources that could power the technologies we'll need for our new world. Mining companies are already planning expeditions to impact sites. What began as a disaster may become the foundation for unprecedented technological advancement. But the real breakthroughs are happening in how we understand Earth systems without lunar influence. Marine biologists have made a discovery that changes everything we thought we knew about ocean ecosystems. Dr. Helen Kim from the Scripps Institution called me with news that sounds like science fiction, but is verified by research teams worldwide. The chaotic ocean conditions aren't just disrupting marine life, they're triggering rapid evolutionary responses. Species that would normally require millions of years to adapt are showing genetic changes within days. The stress of the new environment is activating dormant genetic sequences that allow incredibly fast adaptation. Phytoplankton populations that crashed in the first day after the moon's destruction have been replaced by new varieties that thrive in the unpredictable water conditions. These new organisms are actually producing more oxygen than their predecessors, potentially offsetting the initial atmospheric losses. Fish species are displaying behavioral adaptations that marine biologists have never observed. Without tidal cues to guide them, they're developing new navigation methods based on magnetic fields, water chemistry, and social cooperation. Some species are evolving larger brains and more complex social structures in real time. Dr. Kim described watching schools of dolphins that have completely reorganized their hunting strategies. Instead of relying on predictable tidal patterns to trap prey, they're using sophisticated communication to coordinate hunts across vast areas of chaotic water. It's as if the absence of the moon has unleashed evolutionary potential that was constrained by 4 billion years of predictable lunar cycles. Similar rapid adaptations are occurring on land. Agricultural researchers have discovered that many crop species possess genetic sequences that allow them to survive without lunar cycle cues. These emergency protocols, encoded in plant DNA, are activating worldwide, creating new varieties of food crops that may actually be more productive than their predecessors. Dr. James Martinez from the University of California at Davis has been monitoring wheat fields in Kansas that should have failed without lunar guidance for their growth cycles. Instead, the plants have activated alternative biological clocks based on solar radiation, soil temperature, and atmospheric pressure. These new wheat varieties are showing 30% higher yields than traditional crops and appear to be more resistant to the chaotic weather patterns we're experiencing. The implications for global food security are revolutionary. Instead of facing agricultural collapse, we may be on the verge of an agricultural renaissance driven by genetic potential that the moon's presence had kept dormant. Animal populations are showing similar adaptations. Ranchers across the American West are reporting that cattle herds are developing new social structures that help them navigate without traditional environmental cues. Horses are displaying enhanced night vision capabilities that allow them to function effectively in the darker nights. Most remarkably, honeybee colonies are not just surviving, but thriving. Entomologists expected bee populations to collapse without lunar navigation cues, but instead, they're developing new communication methods. Bees are using vibrational patterns that allow them to share detailed information about food sources without relying on celestial navigation. Dr. Patricia Wong from UC Davis's bee research program told me that some colonies are showing productivity increases of 50% or more. The bees seem to be freed from constraints that lunar cycles imposed on their foraging and reproductive patterns. But let me talk about the human adaptations, because they're the most remarkable of all. Children born since the moon's destruction, and yes, there have been several hundred births worldwide in the past 48 hours, are showing subtle but measurable differences in their circadian rhythm development. These infants are adapting to the new environmental conditions from birth, developing sleep patterns that optimize for the darker nights and more chaotic daylight conditions. Dr. Susan Chen from the International Institute of Child Development has been monitoring these newborns. Their brain activity patterns during sleep are different from children born before the lunar impact. They appear to be developing enhanced abilities to process environmental information and adapt to changing conditions. These children may represent the first generation of humans truly adapted to post-lunar Earth. Adult adaptations are happening faster than anyone predicted. Sleep researchers have found that most people can completely adjust their circadian rhythms to the new conditions within 2 weeks. More surprisingly, many people are reporting improvements in sleep quality and cognitive function once they adapt. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez from the Stanford Sleep Institute believes that lunar cycles may have actually constrained human sleep optimization. Without those constraints, people are developing personalized sleep patterns that better match their individual biological needs. Mental health outcomes are stabilizing rapidly. The initial wave of anxiety and depression is being replaced by what psychologists are calling post-traumatic growth. Communities that came together during the crisis are maintaining those bonds, creating social support networks stronger than existed before the disaster. The shared experience of existential threat has given people a deeper appreciation for life and stronger connections to their communities. Religious and philosophical communities are developing new frameworks for understanding humanity's place in the universe. Instead of seeing ourselves as governed by celestial cycles, many are embracing a vision of humans as active participants in shaping planetary evolution. I spoke with Dr. Sarah Kim, a theologian at Harvard Divinity School, this evening. She described a remarkable transformation in religious thinking. Instead of seeing the moon's destruction as divine punishment or cosmic accident, many faith communities are interpreting it as an opportunity for spiritual growth and enhanced connection to Earth itself. New spiritual practices are emerging that celebrate humanity's direct relationship with the planet rather than our dependence on celestial intermediaries. These practices emphasize environmental stewardship, community cooperation, and adaptive resilience as spiritual values. The technological innovations of the past 48 hours have been staggering. Without the need to account for lunar tidal forces, engineers are developing new approaches to everything from architecture to transportation. Cities are being redesigned around adaptive infrastructure that responds to chaotic weather rather than fighting it. Buildings that can reconfigure themselves, transportation networks that flow like rivers around obstacles, energy systems that harvest power from unpredictable wind and solar patterns. The space industry has pivoted completely. Instead of lunar missions, every space agency is now focused on asteroid mining and planetary defense. The abundance of valuable materials in the lunar debris has demonstrated the potential for space-based resource extraction. SpaceX announced this morning that they're accelerating development of asteroid mining spacecraft. The European Space Agency is planning missions to capture and redirect small asteroids toward Earth orbit for resource extraction. What was once science fiction is becoming economic necessity. But perhaps most importantly, we're discovering that Earth without the moon may actually be more stable than Earth with it. Climate modelers at the National Center for Atmospheric Research have developed new long-term predictions that surprised everyone. While the transition period is chaotic, Earth's new climate system may eventually settle into patterns that are more conducive to life than our previous climate. Without lunar tidal breaking, Earth's rotation is gradually speeding up, which will create stronger atmospheric circulation patterns. These patterns may actually reduce the formation of extreme weather events and create more even distribution of precipitation globally. The absence of tidal friction may allow Earth to maintain a more stable axial tilt over geological timescales. This could prevent the ice ages that have periodically disrupted life on Earth for millions of years. Ocean systems, once they reach their new equilibrium, may support larger and more diverse marine ecosystems than existed under lunar influence. The chaotic mixing of the transition period is distributing nutrients more evenly throughout the oceans, potentially supporting much higher levels of marine productivity. We're not just adapting to the loss of the moon. We're discovering that life on Earth may have been constrained by lunar influence in ways we never understood. As I prepare to close this broadcast, I want to share something that happened to me this afternoon that captures what we're all experiencing. I was walking through downtown Denver around sunset, observing how the city has adapted to the new reality. Streetlights now operate on different schedules to account for the darker nights. People have adjusted their daily routines to take advantage of more visible stars for evening activities. I stopped in a small park where a group of children were playing. These weren't children born since the impact. These were kids who remembered the moon. But they were playing games I'd never seen before, games that used the star patterns and the darker sky as elements of play. One little girl, maybe 6 years old, explained to me that they were playing constellation tag, a game where children had to navigate by star patterns rather than familiar landmarks. She was better at it than I would ever be, even though she'd only had 2 days to learn. That's when I realized that we're not mourning the loss of the old world anymore. We're celebrating the birth of a new one. The moon gave us many gifts over the eons: tides, calendars, romantic inspiration, navigational guidance. But it also imposed constraints. It locked us into cycles that may have limited our potential for growth and adaptation. Without the moon, we're discovering capabilities we never knew we had. We're developing technologies that seemed impossible under the old constraints. We're forming social bonds that transcend the divisions that seemed insurmountable just days ago. We're becoming the species we were always meant to be, not followers of celestial cycles, but active shapers of our planetary future. The children playing in that park tonight will grow up to explore asteroids, terraform other worlds, and perhaps even replace the moon with something better: space habitats that provide exactly the environmental influences that optimize life on Earth. They'll look back on this moment not as a catastrophe that their generation survived, but as the liberation that made their achievements possible. In 48 hours, we've experienced the fastest evolutionary transition in Earth's history. We've lost a companion that guided us for billions of years, but we've gained something more valuable: the knowledge that we can adapt to anything the universe presents. Tomorrow morning, the sun will rise on a world that's still changing, still adapting, still discovering its new potential. There will be challenges, there will be setbacks, there will be moments when we doubt our ability to thrive in this new reality. But tonight, under a sky brilliant with stars that we can finally see clearly, I'm absolutely certain that humanity's greatest adventures lie ahead of us. The moon gave us our past. The empty sky is giving us our future. This is William Ravies, Crex Radio Denver, broadcasting from a new world to the people who will inherit the stars. Thank you for sharing these 48 hours with me. Thank you for proving that no catastrophe is too great for human ingenuity, cooperation, and hope. The night the moon died was the night that humanity was truly born.